Welcome to Polaris Live. This is Sarwar Kashmeri inviting our viewers from around the world to this series of programs on the United States and China in the world. This program is brought to you in conjunction with the Foreign Policy Association in New York. Polaris Live is now in its third year of operation, and I want to thank our global viewership for your support and your confidence in our unbiased coverage of the most consequential relationship of our time. My guest today on PolarisLive.com is one of very few experts on business law in China, Dr. Flora Huang of Derby University in the UK. Flora Huang is a professor of law and business at Derby Law School in the UK. She specializes in Chinese law, arbitration, and international trade and investment law. She has published Chinese legal systems and Chinese integration with the global financial systems. She's worked for international organizations such as the Basel Convention in Geneva and the Office of Legal Affairs at the UN headquarters in New York. Currently, she serves as the EU chairperson for arbitrations and trade and sustainable development expert panel proceedings at the European Commission. She's also an arbitrator of the China Guangzhou arbitration position of the Central Asian Legal Research Fellow in Uzbekistan. Her new book, Chinese and Global Financial Integration Through Stock Connect, will be published this October. Please join me in welcoming to Polaris Live from Derbyshire, England, Dr. Flora Huang. Thank you for taking the time to join us, Dr. Flora Huang.
Good to see you, Sarwar.
And I know that law in China changes virtually in real time, so you must be a very busy person.
Yeah, it always keep changing, and a lot of not only the law, and they have a lot of the administrative rules and the policy change as well.
Oh boy. I would, if you don't mind, like to start by just taking a 10,000 feet view of capitalism in China, right? How to a layman, how would you describe it? Is it free market? I mean, we live in the West. How would you compare capitalism in China?
Here, I just give you before I say my opinion, I just wanted to give you some kind of data or the media.
Of course.
You could see that from this year, a lot of the global business leader are lined up to visit China. And the Elon Musk, the Bill Gates, and LVMH, the Bernard Arnold, and also the JP Morgan Chase, a lot. So you could see that why they visit China, and a lot of the people that visit, I think that at least from the global company, the China is a key market for them. In terms of consumer, the one of the largest, the consumer, the market, and also in terms the China is the world factory, so they need to visit China. But this for the company side. But when you look at the China side, they also have a very strong message to the world. China welcome business, not only from the local business, that of course they welcome the all US or whatever, the EU, UK, whatever the world, the part of the world that they welcome them. And also you could see that they have a very high profile meetings, and the Xi Jinping met the Bill Gates. So this very strong message to show the world that China is open the market for the business. This for the news. And also I just got a very new data from the recently from the Chinese Minister of Commerce. Some the data here, this the FDI last year they grew more than 6% compared to the 2021. And
this is the foreign direct investment you're talking about?
Yeah, FDI.
Okay.
for the FDI. And also only this year from January to the May, and the number of newly established foreign investor companies reached over 18,000.
Really?
This the year-on-the-year increase at 38%.
These are incorporations, Flora, of new companies?
Yeah, the new company, the new register, that is
Okay.
owned by the foreign investors.
Okay.
By foreigners. So this is 38%. So you could see that whatever from the data from the news, they really show that China that still welcome the business from the whole world.
But let me ask you. Lately, the U.S.-China tensions, geopolitical tensions, keep ratcheting up. And I was talking to a senior member of a very large American law firm, and they said that they are starting to think about hedging their bets and trimming some of their staff from China. So, do you think that this geopolitical tension is soon going to start affecting the growth of foreign companies in China? What is your thinking on that, Flora?
Yes, and I think that the U.S., the China, this the tension really affect the companies, and I also heard that a lot of the foreign company, particularly, I'm not really sure whether you know the Dongguan. Dongguan is the typical, really famous for the company from the U.S., the Taiwan and the Hong Kong, but now that they try to move the factory into the South Asia. And so this the why they worry first they worry the U.S., the China, the tension between the U.S., the China, the government tension. The second is the inflation. Inflation is the ruble, the labor price increase. So and the transportation price. So all this the price increase. So this all the causes act to this the product causes. But you also, if you only look at the in terms these I understand that a lot of the companies they really worry, but when we look at the long term, the business, the China, the still the one of the attracted the market for the global the business.
And clearly it is. And the other question I wanted to, one question, and when I give talks, I'm always faced with, all right, I think I'd like to start a company in China, right? And so when that question comes up, are there some simple, is there a simple way to explain it? Like you can start it, like a company in America, you can set up a board, but you need to have, as I understand it, Chinese. Can you just lay out very simply the 3 or 4 steps someone would have to go through to set up a company in China?
For the foreign company, if they want to set up in the China, and here they have the new law in the 2020, they have a foreign investment law. So why we call that this new law? In the past, we also have 3 the old laws, but now this the single united laws. They try to converge all the old laws only into the one. And in this the law, the very important in the one article, they empower foreign company national treatment. National treatment. So it means if the company you want to set up, the foreign company you want to set up in China, you could enjoy the same treatment as the local company. So this the very important or the new provision for the foreign investments. But you have to aware that do have a negative list. So they list or negative list. If you are following the negative list, then you need to the approval from the China government. Okay. But if not, if you don't, for example, if out of this negative list, so you mean that you could totally enjoy the same treatment and the same law as the local companies. This is very, I think that because in the past you need to have a different laws you need to follow, and also a lot of the approvals, but now that is the approval less and simple.
So forgive me for asking this again, but this is really important. I was not aware of this. So 3 years ago, 2020, the Chinese government passed a law where non-Chinese companies will follow the same law as Chinese companies, unless
Um,
they
they
are
no, they don't
no.
call the follow the same law. They say that it's the national treatment. I mean, the law you still need to the follow this the foreign investment law, not
Aha.
called the same law,
Okay.
the different law.
Okay.
But just said that you enjoy the same the treatment. What does it mean? That enjoy the same the treatment. So it means that you basically, if you're out of this the negative list, the sectors. So wherever your company register, approval, or other the tax, other things. So it's the same, nearly the same as the Chinese company law.
Then would you therefore say that the doing business as China is beginning, it's not there, but it's beginning to resemble setting up a company here, if China wants to set up a company here. The United States and Europe also have an entities list where in certain sensitive sectors there are different rules and maybe there's even prohibition. So you're saying things are converging.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. If I may switch, let me switch to private investors, right? Can you clarify how a private investor in Europe or in America can buy stock, equities? Coming to Wall Street is fairly straightforward. There's all kinds of channel you can do it. How does one do it in China?
Yeah, and this, in terms of stock market, indeed, this is also the really strong the representation of the China. This the more open in the past. I just done nearly the published book that talk about the Chinese the financial the integration with the global. In my book, I talk about the Stock Connect. Stock Connect is some kind of stock exchange tie up. So it means that the China Stock Exchange, you could just directly to connect with the Hong Kong, London, Switzerland, and perhaps the soon with the Germany. Use the Stock Connect, so you could directly the buy and sell the share and this the depository the receipt. So it's nearly the same. Now in terms the China and Hong Kong, also in my book, I said that now that it try to the towards one single market, one country, one single market. So the particular from this month, you could purchase the Chinese stock in the Hong Kong. You could use the Hong Kong dollar or the in the Chinese the yuan, renminbi. So you said that's really the biggest step for the renminbi the internalization because they don't restrict it. You definitely have to use the foreign the currency to purchase the Chinese stock. You could use any the stock to purchase the Chinese the share.
Okay.
And here I just want to add one more. The Stock Connect is really important and open the Chinese market because before the 2014, and all the foreign investor, if you want to enter to buy and sell the share, the Chinese stock, you need to apply digital code QFII. QFII is the Qualified Foreign Institutional Investor Scheme. So it means that you need to get approval. The second, you only the institutional investor you could buy, no the retail the investor.
I
But
see.
now that they release no approval, and whatever it could be the retail the investor and the institutional investor. So you could see this the big difference.
Yes, and your books, the Stock Connect, explains. May I call it an app? That a lot of people can understand. The Stock Connect, where even investors, private investors like me, for
Yeah.
example, if I wanted to buy directly shares in a company, I can use Stock Connect to do so without filling out this form. that used to exist.
Yeah, no, you no need to fill any the approval, any the form. That you just go to your local broker. So go to the broker the platform to buy the share. It's the same as, for example, the US stock. But here it haven't any the connection with the New York Stock Exchange yet. No, not yet. Only the connect at the moment connected with the Hong Kong and London and the Switzerland. And the soon is Germany, but not US at the moment.
So how would an American investor then buy shares in Shanghai? What steps would they go through?
So you mean that you need to use, for example, from Hong Kong, either from Hong Kong or from London.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, if you have an account at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange or that you have an account in London, then you could use this stock connect to purchase directly purchase the equities.
So how, excuse me. So in the case of Hong Kong, with the changeover within the last 2 years, how has that affected the investment issue? Does it changed it? Is it the same?
Here I could. When I look at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, I could feel the change. The first change is the Chinese company. In the past, about 20 years ago, the Chinese company accounted 50% or over 50% all the listing on the Hong Kong. But now because the Hong Kong, they try to reduce the one-way dimension. So they try to attract the other investor or listing company. So now the listing, the ratio, the listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, they reduce around 30%. So you could see the Chinese company listed on the Hong Kong, the ratio reduce around 30 from 50% to 30%. But for the listing company, but in terms the investor, because the Hong Kong investor, you could directly buy the stock from China. Also, the Chinese investor, you could buy the Hong Kong stock. So for the investor base that have a large pool of the investor base. Initially consider is some kind of one market, not like in the past, or you have a Chinese market or Hong Kong market separated, but now they connected.
Dr. Huang, allow me a moment to remind our viewers that PolarisLive.com is a reader-supported channel. To receive news about upcoming programs and to support our work, please visit my website, kashmeri.com, which is KASHMERI.com. And now let's get back to my guest, Professor Flora Huang from Derby University in the UK. I'm going to ask you, the common perception, at least in the West, at least in America, is that Chinese government can change corporate law arbitrarily, that they can introduce changes, and so people who set up a company there, can face a whole different circumstance. I'm going to give an example to you of a change that was made in Italy just 2 or 3 days ago, just so we can compare the two as you start answering this query from American investors. So Pirellii, the big tire maker in Italy, right? Almost a third of their stock is owned by a Chinese company. And so the Prime Minister of Italy decided that Italy couldn't have that much ownership by Chinese of an Italian company. And she forced through a change in law which takes away a lot of the facilities the Chinese investors had to do things in the Italian company. So is this not a change that was unforeseen? And when people talk about China being able to make changes without any warning, is there a resemblance? I'm just trying to compare whether it's fair to accuse China of arbitrary changes in view of what just happened in Italy.
Here I could see that when you consider doing the business, law is one factor. And when you consider law, the have a full set of law, and it already update the company law the 2018 and the security law 2019, also the arbitration law. So it means that they have a whole set of law. Also, like I said earlier, this the following the investment law the 2020. So you could see already they have a very once established the legal system. And also when I started to try to compare the Chinese law with the UK or the US law, I found that they have a lot of the share, a lot of in common, that have the same directed duties, and that they also nearly have the same the shareholder rights and the shareholder actions. So I believe that for the law concern, there is no problem if you're doing the business in China. But doing the business, also, law is only the one factor. You also need to consider this the government influence. For example, like the Utah case, in the Italy case, also for example, like the Huawei, they try to invest the 5G in the UK. Also, this the deal that was the bank. So this some kind of the political influence is very difficult to expect. You have still have no idea what the government will consider. For example, in the Italy case, they consider the shareholder that are linked to the China. So this the government decision is quite subjective. It depends a lot of factors. Depends your politics, also the recent diplomatic relationship. So very difficult. You could say that, but this is not part of the law. If you only for the law, no concern on law. But I just want to separate the political factor and the legal law.
Sure. It's I must gonna ask you about this topic because it also comes up when I give talks, and IP theft, intellectual property theft. So the common belief in America anyway, and I suspect throughout the West, is that if you open a company in China, they want you to take your technology and transfer it to them. Tell them how that is. One. Two, that you need to be very careful as you start operating because that's what happens when you do it in China. So is this true? I mean, is it, and also that you need, I'll throw in another one, that you need a Communist Party board member, right? So intellectual property theft is rampant. You need a Chinese, someone from China to be on your board. Can you talk about those two issues for someone that's thinking about investing in China?
And here, in terms of some kind of data or the privacy or the IP rights, I just think that it's the same model in the US. For example, in the US, the 2020, that the US also passed the bill, the Holding Foreign Company Accountable Act, acquire all the listing the company. You need to follow the whole set of the data, and also the disclosure. So I think it's something that happened in China, and the China indeed it do have in the recent years it do have a national security law and the data law, and also impose quite high the pressure on the not only for the foreign company, also for the Chinese company if they want to the listing in the US or in London. Because you need to pass the national security review and the data. For example, like the DD, the calling card, the app. You also because they didn't follow the data rule that they need to the delisting from the US. So I think that you could see here. I could understand the foreign investor, they do have the concern on the data or the security, but I think it's something that not only in China, also that in US or for example in UK or in EU, they also have a data protection rules. So as long as you follow the rules, so I think I can't see that they have any big concern.
Now here's a question that doesn't directly deal with law. Is this tension, geopolitical tension, especially between America and China and all the sanctions and so on. Is this affecting your business? Is it making it more difficult for companies to think about starting businesses in China and so on? What is the impact? Tell us about the impact about this, the China-U.S., especially the China-U.S. Tensions.
I think here I was just bring some at the beginning. I talk about this the very high profile the meetings with the U.S. the Chinese government and the global the business leader. I think that the China that is the move very smart because it try to little bit separate government to government, this the tension, and the business and with the business, this the relationship is still the going well. I hope this the whatever happen between the government to government, but Chinese business in turn the business they still the very happy to work with the global the business. So now this some kind of strategy the play by the Chinese government they try to separate this. So indeed I have to admit this the really the have a impact on the U.S. the China relationship impact on the business, but this also we could see they have some kind of step that move forward, particularly for the Blinken, the Secretary of State, visit China recently. So they to the leaders they try to restore the communication between the two countries. I hope properly this year and maybe this year or in the coming years they have more and more the communication or the policy that. Between the U.S. and China.
So you seem a little optimistic that things
Yes.
are with Mr. Blinken's visit on an upswing, and that things will change going forward.
Yeah, because I could see that this the potential. They have a huge potential with the if you're doing the business with China and the U.S. Particularly this the two the strongest, the powerful the country in the world. I mean, they still have a lot of the tension and divergence, but the future is still the brighter.
Well, that is really, really a good thing to hear from you. And since we are going to run out of time very soon, I wanted to ask you if you were able to find President Xi Jinping alone at a cocktail party. What are 2 or 3 things that you would tell him China should do unilaterally to improve this tension between the US and China on the business side or otherwise, whichever way you want to go? But what are 2 or 3 things that they can do unilaterally?
And I think the one, because I'm also the investor, not only in the investor in China and in the US. So for the investor, the perspective, we really want a stable policy. Not only law, I know that China have a whole set of law, but I really need some kind of promise or guarantee from China to maintain stable policy for the foreign investment. Because I could see that in the 2021, why the people so worried about this the company because they create them a lot of the policy, create them the technology company. So this they really need some kind of insurance from the government.
Okay. Well, I wish we could go on, but I think that this interview with you has made me understand a little more what law in China is like, and I would love to have you come back after your new book arrives, if you have the time to talk to us about that. And so, if I may, I would like to now thank you again, and I would like to wish you good luck in your new upcoming book.
Thank you. I really enjoy here and really thank you for invitation.
It's our pleasure. And with that, let me now thank our global viewers who are listening in to tell them please sign up and get alerts from from Polaris.live. I hope we'll see you back again in the future, in 2 weeks, for the next Polaris Live. Until then, goodbye.
Bye.